The Legion posts that are present for this inauguration are Wamply Post 269, Commander Guilford Noisicle. Lynn Post 265, Kyle, Commander John Roundin. Goodchill Post 294, Porcupine, Commander Eddie Laystad. Batesland Post 281, Commander Todd Richard. Public Safety, Commander Daniel Masters. may be a people at peace among ourselves, and a blessing to all nations of the earth. President of our tribe, members of the executive committee, all administrative authority, grant wisdom and grace in the exercise of their duties. To our district, tribal council representatives, and those who make our laws of our sovereign nation, courage, wisdom, foresight to provide for the needs of all our people, and to fulfill our obligations in the community of nations. To our judges, to our courts, give understanding and integrity, that human rights may be safeguarded and justice served. Finally, teach our Lakota Oyate. Continue to rely on your strength to accept their responsibilities to their fellow citizens. They may continue to elect trustworthy leaders and make wise decisions for the well-being of our reservation. We may serve you faithfully in our generation and honor your holy name. Yours is the kingdom, O Lord. You are exalted as head of all. Amen. Be seated. I'd like to welcome all the people that are here, the honored guests up here, to this occasion of inaugurating Mr. Salway and Mr. Between Lodges. So I'd like to welcome you again this morning and participate in the ceremonies that are taking place. Judge Underhall.
I'm without your Belem, Chante Yopia, Lampetu, Uchashanum, Uniche Uchasha Ota, Oyate Uchaka. You come. Wanna le Otoka Ham, wanna Lakota, you wanna le Oishaka, Yuka, wanna le Oyateki, Oyakam, Chaje. We check, you can wopila hecha, wanna le Pomni cheki yankyo bikile, wanna Lakota, where the chetia, wanna yankyo. You can was tibi chata. It hatched a gaki of bikile, Chajem and then wopila hecha. You can, ladies and gentlemen. This time it gives me great pleasure to thank all of you to be here, and on behalf of the Glasu Tribal Judicial System, I'm here at the request of the Honorable President Salway. It is indeed a great pleasure to be called upon to perform this ceremony, the oath of office. So at this time, I'd like to call the President-elect and the Vice President-elect to step forward so I can render the oath of office first in Lakota, and the whole happy Glushna ki bless the do the oath of office in English. Bindi, Omnichim Chasha, Pacha, Yoila, Chasha. What is Chimchim? You have what? What in Pichum? Dictating Chasha, he Kawotu, Kawoi Pacha, work. You have land, you have land that which work like man. Yeah. Mikawachi, Michuya. Jerry Chasha, Kawoi. Jerry Chasha, Kawoi.
Carry out faithfully and impartially the duties of my office to the best of my ability, promote and protect the best interests of my tribe. Your policy in accordance with the Constitution and Bible.
This time we're going to have Mr. Rick Fong is going to do the work on the ceremony.
I am in here. Mushila, Nawawokia, Lena Ataheli Koya, Shakeli Chala, Ya Yubakia, Nayusuta, Noyate Chechka, Ichuchu, Ohechel Wapahon, Vekile Yoklatia, Nilako Kalena Heli Aunki, Ohemo, wapaha Kile, Ya Wana, Ya Mwaki, Ya Waka, Ya
We're going to continue with our private ceremony.
avec moi, capacité de
I'm going to have an oath of office with the council.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, newly elected tribal council. At this time, the tribal president bestowed upon me, which I take great honor and pride to render and administer the oath of office to each of your respective positions. This oath of office is in accordance with the Inauguration Tribal Constitution and bylaws. Should this day forward for a period of term of 2 years, it is your duty and obligation to uphold and abide by the oath of office which the people have entrusted in your mind and your hearts. So at this time, I'm going to render the oath of office in the Lakota language, and after that, I'm going to render that in English. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, the tribal council, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. Yeah. Mikhail Chuye. Mikjewi Chasha, Khavoid Khasha. Nan Khavod is a Hena. Etia Baboa. Nan Nawik Chach. Chante Kichuye. Boa she mitha ya if boa mogi glake mathoka wo khe nan khabo kunse lena nawik chat chishi kidalo. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, carry out faithfully and impartially the duties of my office to the best of my ability, promote and protect the best interest of my tribe. In accordance with this Constitution and bylaws. Congratulations, now you are officially members of the Glasu Tribal Council.
Mr. Wendell Chino. He came all the way from Muscalura, Apache. For the past 20 some odd years, he's been a chairman of his tribe. In recent times, he's been the backbone of dealing with the national problems that Indian people face nationally. And his leadership has been really based on the spiritual life of Indian people. And he's been using that spiritual source to lead his people. So at this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Wendell Chino. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here in a new country. Before I get too involved, I would like to introduce a strange face out there so that
you don't think that there's a spy in the Sioux country. I have a pilot by the name of Bob Akeley. Bob, can you stand up? I don't want the Sioux police to take you in. That's why I want to introduce you. General, one feather, President, Governor, members of the Tribal Council. I'm glad for this wonderful opportunity to address you today on this wonderful occasion. Back in my home state of New Mexico, a couple of my people went to town about 30 miles from Mescalero. They went to Alamogordo, New Mexico, which is the county seat. So in that little town there is a small city park. So these two Apache fellas went over to the park and they sat down on the park bench. And not too far away were a couple of non-Indians. So these two Apache guys said, why don't you go over there and ask them, see what they think of us Apaches. Well, they started nudging one another and they said, no, you go. Another said, no, you go. So one of them decided to go over there. Hey, you guys here, what do you think of us Apaches? He went like that to him. So he went back to his friend and he said, what did they say? He said, we're number one. You know, President Ford here a few years ago was in Colorado. You want to go skiing? So they asked the cousins of Mr. Duncan, the Ute Mountain to put on a dance. So the Ute Mountain people agreed that they're going to put on a dance for the President of the United States. But they wanted the Ute people to do a snow dance so that the President could have a lot of snow and enjoy good skiing in Colorado. So after the dance was over, President Ford said to one of the Ute fellows, one of the dancers, he said, say, what's the difference between the rain dance and the snow dance? Oh, he said, there's not too much difference. The only difference is the long john. You know, I picked up some letters that have been addressed to the state of South Dakota Social Services. So I'm glad the Honorable Governor is here so he can listen to some of these letters addressed. These are actual letters from your social services in the state of South Dakota. So listen. I am forwarding my marriage certificate and 6 children. I have 7, but one died, which was baptized on a half sheet of paper. And the second letter went like this. I'm writing the welfare department to say that my baby was born 2 years old. When do I get my money? Then another one wrote, Mrs. Jones has not had any clothes for a year and has been visited by the preacher regularly. And another one wrote, I cannot get sick pay. I have 6 children. Can you tell me why? And another lady wrote, this is my 8th child. What are you going to do about it? And still another one wrote, another lady wrote, this is what she said. I'm very much annoyed to find you have branded my son illiterate. This is a dirty lie, as I was married a week before he was born. By the way, these letters weren't written by Indians, they were written by non-Indians. See how they did right? In the first place, we Indians, we don't even know who to write to. This afternoon, I would like to address you on the subject of the attributes of true Indian leadership. The attributes of true Indian leadership. Indian leaders today in our country are vested with one of the most difficult and complex responsibility unknown to any other group who share and have a leadership role. The governor of any state, he surrounds himself with secretaries and cabinet members, and each secretary is charged with some specific responsibility in the conduct of state affairs. The President of the United States is pretty much the same way. He has a secretary, and all of that work is cut out for them. They are charged to take care of the nation's business. But not so with Indian leaders, because our Indian leaders have a multi-vested role, and this role is ever-changing as the problems, business needs, and challenges may demand. Our Indian leaders, our tribal leaders, our heads of state, as they deal with the United States, with the various states, with the various commercial and industrial institutions in behalf of their people. They perform the role of a foreign negotiator when they sit across the governor, when they sit across the President of the United States, when they sit across some of the chief executive officers of the various corporations of this country. So in behalf of their people, they negotiate various things that are important to individual tribes. They also play the role of an attorney, because they must advocate the rights of their people. They play the role of the financier, because they must deal with the tribe's money and investments. They play the role of entrepreneur, as the leader builds up business for the tribe. The tribal leader is also a conservationist, for he must protect the land, the water, the timber, the minerals, and other resources of his people. Working among our own people is hard to recoup. But nevertheless, it is important. The second attribute of Indian leadership is dedication. dedication is a devotion to do something. The gentleman that is going to be inaugurated today, I'm sure in his mind and in his heart, he has resolved to do something for your people. And the reason dedication is so vitally important is that it keeps the leader on course and continue the progress towards the goals and objectives that he may have for his people. But to serve our people, we have to dedicate ourselves. Because Indian leadership is not 8 to 5 o'clock institution. As I've already indicated for you to do, the Indian leader has to function, perform in so many ways that he can never do all of these things from 8 to 5. But whatever the hours may demand and require, that is what he is to serve. But the leader needs one specific goal, and that is the betterment of Indian people with dedicated leadership. The third attribute of true Indian leadership is knowledge. If any Indian leader is going to perform for his people, first of all, he needs the knowledge, the intimate knowledge of his own people with regard to their aspirations, their hopes, their desires. Because it is difficult to do anything for your people if you don't understand them and have a good knowledge of your tribal people. For there are many variables in the tribal membership, and it is up to the leader to understand these differences in the variables to serve the people. The Indian leader must also have knowledge of his people's needs. We are no different than the general American public as Indian people. We have need for education. We have need for employment. We have need for health and medical care. We have need for housing. And on it goes as we identify the human needs of our people. In addition, the leader must have knowledge of the issues facing his people, the issues facing the Indian tribes across the country, the issues within our respective states, these issues that affect our people. And we must be knowledgeable in all of these areas. But we must also have the knowledge. Mr. Chairman spoke. But in the midst of all these things, there's a price to be paid. He has to deny himself and deny the association of his wife and his children. All part of the price to exercise in the leadership. And the final attribute that I want to mention is that an Indian leader is a servant of his people. He cannot expect, nor should anyone expect, that he is to be placed on a pedestal. He is not to be the boss. He is not to seek the top honor. But he assumes and dons the bonnet, the cloak of leadership to serve the people. Even the good book says, he that is greatest among you, let him be your servant. But the fact remains is that you as tribal members, as Indian people, you expect your leader to lead and to serve. And you Indian people, you tribal members of Oglala Sioux, want your leadership to be effective and to act in good faith. We as Indian leaders must hold up ourselves as law-abiding, forthright, and fair before our own people. Because before we can lead and inspire our tribal members, we must be upright. One time, 3 ladies back in Michigan, where I had gone to school, came to visit, passing through Mescalero. And they said, Mr. Chino, how long have you been a leader among your people? And I said, over 25 years. And they said, Mr. Chino, 25 years and no scandal? Yes, 25 years and no scandal. Because the Mescalero Apache tribe does not owe Wendell Chino anything except his paycheck every other week. So let us understand that it is difficult to live in dignity, to uphold immorality, to uphold the basic tenets of society and the reservation. But the leader must respect the office that you have bestowed upon him, and he must recognize this honor. In closing, I would like to read to you the penalty of leadership. In every field of human endeavor, he that is first must perpetually live in the white light of publicity. Whether the leadership be vested in a man or in a manufactured product, emulation and envy are ever at work. In art, in literature, in music, in industry, the reward and the punishment are always the same. The reward is widespread recognition. The punishment, fierce denial and detraction. When a man's work becomes a standard for the whole world, it also becomes a target or the shaft of the envious few. If his work is merely mediocre, he will be left very alone. If he achieves a masterpiece, it will set 1,000,000 tons of wagon. Jealousy does not protrude its forked tongue at the artist who produces a commonplace painting. Whatsoever you write or paint, or play, or sing, or build, no one will strive to surpass or to slender you unless your work be stamped with the seal of a genius. The leader is a sail, and the effort to equal him is merely added proof of that leadership. Failing to equal or to excel, the follower seeks to depreciate and to destroy, but only confirm once more the superiority of that which he strives to supplant. There is nothing new in this. It is as old as the world, and as old as human passions, envy, fear, greed, ambition, and the desire to surpass. And it all avails nothing. If the leader truly leads, he remains the leader. Master poet, master painter, master workman, each in his turn is a saint, and each holds his laurels through the ages. That which is good or great makes itself known, no matter how long the clamor of denial. That which deserves to live, lives. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Luke Duncan. He's currently the chairman of the Ute Tribe. The past several months has been very instrumental in trying to provide leadership in dealing with treaty issues. Mr. Duncan.
Good afternoon to all of you. I've been serving my people on the Tribal Council now for 11 months. Before that time, serving my people, I was asked several times if I would. The answer was always no, I would not. I felt that I couldn't. But what changed my mind one day, what changed my mind were the children in school. I wondered what was being done for our children. Watching the destruction in our communities, watching the poverty, watching our children drop out of school and not care, not have a direction. Traditional, cultural, what was being done for them? The values of our people were gone. Something had to change, and something has to change today. As Mr. Chino said, we have a big job. All leaders have a big, big job. We are being threatened. We are being threatened and always have been. And that makes me very angry. We as Indian people have been here for over 100 years. And finally we're starting to make a move to unite. We're finally waking up after all of that time when we have lost many things to the white man. What's woken us up now? Because we're being threatened. And even our own tribal leaders on our own reservations don't realize what the priorities are. They don't realize that the priorities are treaties, congressional orders. Those things that hold our reservations together, that is the priority. Even on our reservations, we have leaders who don't understand what the priority is. You know, we talk about housing, we talk about education. That's all secondary. But as I sit here and I look among you people today, as I'm far away from home, I see my mother and my father. I see my people. They're just like you and me. We're all the same. We're all Indian people. And to see the drum come in this morning, if I am anything, I am a singer. I traveled here many times in my life to sing at the powwows here. I felt the traditional feeling. I felt the good feeling that Indian people should feel. The pride and dignity that we all should have within ourselves to succeed, to be something. I felt it right here. And I hope it's still here. Because I took that home with me, what I found here at one time. When I first came here, I was a very young man. We were young guys, carrying a drum, being told about the rules and regulations that that drum has, and I still believe it, and I still carry that with me. I traveled here many times. We pull in late at night sometimes, the powwow going on, and it was such a good feeling. You just couldn't wait, because people with pride were there. We never ran out of songs. Song after song, I remember, and seeing all of the old people. It was something I wasn't used to seeing. The drums going until early hours of the morning. It was a good feeling. But getting back to the threats that we have as Indian people on Indian reservations, we have our own people that we need to educate, as I've said so many times. We have to educate our own people and let them realize, because among us there are those that don't want to. We have our communities with the bad that's running rampant in our communities. You look at the community, you go there every weekend, you can see it. The values of our children. I've got a campaign back home. I have a campaign with my people. No matter how busy I am, I always take a day and I visit the children in school. Elementary, Head Start, junior high, high school. I talk to them just like this. I get off the stage and I stand down there and I talk to them and I ask them, what's your problem? What do you children want to be? What do you children want to be when you grow up? And I always tell the children that you have an effect on your parents. Some of those kids in school, they deserve a pat on the back because they're worrying about where their supper is going to come from. They're worrying about if their parents are going to be home tonight. They're worrying about those other things and then making it through school. We all went through that. And I, for one, don't want my children to go through that. And when I say my children, I mean all of the Indian children on my reservation. Because I feel that as a representative of my people, I represent those kids. Who else is going to represent them? As you heard earlier, the corruption within our own tribal governments. It's there and it's evident. We can't hide that anymore. You've seen tribal leaders that have been there for their own benefit. We have them. We have them on our reservation. They've been there before. But somehow they remain there for some reason. They buy people. But maybe one of these days, maybe our people will wake up and really realize what the threat really is. Then maybe our children can stand up with pride once again. But I know that there is one battle that we must all come together and fight. And that is the battle that I've been fighting and trying to get to the children. And that's the alcohol and drugs. I sometimes wonder if I get to the students. Just last week there was a meeting among the children there that are in trouble most of the time. They have a center for them, and they had a meeting. They had them all come in and sit down. Each one got up and spoke. And one of the young men who's been in trouble constantly got up. And he said, what you've been saying is right. He said, alcohol is killing our people. We used to be a large tribe. But even my friends that I grew up with in the community, running around with them, doing what Indians do on reservations, being brothers, most of them are gone. And it's sad because you feel alone. You feel alone because they're not there. Sometimes we get together and we go over and we see where they're laid to rest. Sometimes we stop and talk to them. We ask them for help. We ask them for guidance. But that is what I feel is a threat to the younger children. And I will continue to see the children in our schools. But even though we do that, even though we go out of our way to be with the children, we still get criticized for it. We still get criticized by those people that are being paid to do just that, which they have not been doing. Indian leaders that do what we're doing, we're a threat to them. And the only way that they can get back to us is by criticizing us and trying to make us stop. But we won't, and we're not going to. And I hope that all of the Indian leaders that are here, the tribal leaders, will continue to meet with the children too. But we've had a threat here this last year. Up in Wisconsin is where it started for me, getting into office. I've worked off the reservation for 15 years. I've had a job off the reservation, but I've lived on the reservation all my life. I commuted off the reservation and came home, raising my little family. So last year, we got into a turmoil on our reservation. The older people approached me and asked if I would serve for them, and I told them that I would. That is why I'm here. So last year when I got into office, I started reading in newspapers on what was going on in Wisconsin. The threat that the people were having over there pertaining to their fishing rights. It started growing every week, every month. I started getting concerned because what affects other tribes affects us too. I would read about it and I would tell the tribal council, hey, something's happening over there. We need to wake up. We need to do something. A long time ago, even before I got in office, I had a dream one time. I had a dream one time when Indian people would come together, when we would come together in one place, where we would be a force. It was just a thought at that time. I had no idea that I would be here. I had no idea that I would be serving my people. It was long before that. And I'm starting to see that become reality because we're being concerned about the future of our people. And I'm glad to see that. But the meetings that they were having in Wisconsin had landed right in Salt Lake City, which is our home. It's my hometown. one of our cities there. When it happened there, I started receiving calls from other people and other tribes, and I knew that something had to be done. The urban Indians, the other tribes of the state, we came together, and we organized a protest. We protested them. Indian leaders came together, and I was glad that the Oglala Sioux were there. I was glad to see your elders travel so far to be with us. The strength that we needed and the unity that we needed was right there, and I'm glad. And I'd like to say thank you to all of you, Oglala Sioux, for being there and supporting us. It meant so much to me. Thank you. I think that what we have been through here lately, and coming together and smoking a peace pipe among the tribes is something that should have been done a long time ago, but we have done it. As I told the gathering in Salt Lake City, that I no longer have to feel alone, even on my own reservation sometimes, in my own tribal council. I felt alone. I felt alone because I had councilmen who didn't realize what the priorities really are. But I don't feel that way anymore, because there are Indian people who care, because we are all the same. We're all Indian people. And what are we going to do if they defeat us? We must have our reservations. We must have our Indian ways. We must teach Indian ways to our children. We must push them if we have to. Isn't that a good feeling when you go to a powwow somewhere and you see the children dancing? Isn't that a good feeling? I was in Denver a couple of weeks ago. I saw the powwow there. I've been there many times. It felt so good to have that Indian feeling there, where we can all come together and listen to the music. Listen to the power of the drum. Listen to what it does to you. Sometimes you listen to that drum and it feels so good. Let me tell you a story about that drum one time. I came over to Pine Ridge one time for a powwow and Sundance. We pulled in late at night. We sang there. The next day we brought our drum back in to sing. There was a man sitting there. There was a man sitting there in a wheelchair. He had a tape recorder on his lap. I walked over and our drum was covered with a blanket. We were going to set up for that day again. He told me, he said, "I'm sorry, but this place is reserved." I stood there and I said, "Reserved for who?" He said, "This place is reserved for those gentlemen that were here last night." He said, "I listened to them from my car." And so I went home and I got me a tape recorder, and tonight I'm going to record them. He said, "And I'm saving this for them, so I don't have to move." I told him that that was us. Well, he was so glad. He got out of the way and he said, "I'm sorry. I've been reserving this place for you." But I sat there and we sat up there and we started singing. The powwow started to go. But I watched that man close his eyes. I watched him close his eyes, and when he was in that wheelchair, and he would go, because that drum took him. Because that song made him dance when he closed his eyes. He could walk. And that's the way we should be. That's what we need to put into our children, is that pride. Our Indian pride and our Indian respect for one another. This unity that we talk about, it pertains to each and every one of us. Somewhere along the line in our lives, we are going to have to realize that we are all the same. That is what I tell the children when I'm in front of them in school. I said, one of these days you're going to realize. I said, maybe your uncle, maybe your aunt, maybe your brothers and sisters, someone, maybe your grandpa, grandma. Talk to them. If you can't, go for a walk and talk to the sky. The children have to find themselves the way we all do. But I hope that our children can find themselves sooner in life than we all did. But I know one thing, I don't want them to experiment the way that most of us have. When I stand in front of my people and I ask them to join hands with me in my fight against the alcohol and drugs, I'm asking them for help from me too, because I need help from them. I need encouragement from them as well as the children. It's for me too. And if I can do it, they can do it. We can all do it. But I think that to us, we should think as Indian leaders about our priorities. You know, the problems that we have in our own states, dealing with Indian affairs. I never realized what condition we were in as a tribe. Speaking of our tribe in Utah, we were always told what to do. We were always told what to do by the state. We have the state of Utah coming up with different committees all the time, with task forces that deal with Indian affairs. When I came on board, I boycotted the task force. I would not go. I had a seat on there. 15 people, 3 of them were Indians. The rest were non-Indians. 2 of those Indians were urban. I was the only reservation Indian. And I said, no, I would not serve. I didn't go. I was openly criticized in the paper, on TV, but I responded. I said it was ludicrous to have it set up that way. To tell us how to live and make a policy for Indian people on Indian reservations, making it from the city. And I invited them to come over and bring their sleeping bags. I said, if you want to make policy for me and my people, bring your sleeping bag, and I will take you to a home where a child sleeps on the floor. And you can sleep next to that child, and you can ride that bus with him too. And when that child is made fun of, then you watch, and you spend maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a couple of months with him. And then maybe you can make policy for me and my people. But until you do that, I don't want to hear it. But I think that the time has come when Indian leaders should represent the people that they're chosen to do that for. I know it's a big battle, and I feel good when we come together, as we did in Salt Lake City and Rapid City. But my message here today is that I'm very, very thankful to be here. I'm very thankful to be here and honoring my 2 brothers. I'm very thankful to be here. I guess in a way, for me, it would be kind of sad to say welcome to the political world, because I know how bad it can be to be criticized, rumors starting about you, as Mr. Chino said. That's the way it really is. But we as Indian leaders, sometimes we have to ignore that. But one thing I've always said to my tribal council, one thing I've always felt, one thing that you definitely need in this job is a sense of humor. If we can laugh as Indian people, if we can get out there and laugh with our people, if we can have a good time, if we can sit at that drum over there, if we can go to a powwow, if we can go to a Sundance, if we go to Sweat, if we come together and you're still you, then you're okay. But one thing I would suggest to my brothers today is that never forget, as was mentioned, who you represent. Never ever forget what got you here. Never ever forget the traditional ways and the cultural ways and the values that we have as Indian people. Never stop hearing the suffering. Never stop hearing the old people cry. And never stop seeing the young children that need you so badly to represent them. That is where the true leadership really is. Never stop hearing them cry. Thank you.
As my wife Linda and I were coming down here a couple of hours ago, we had a conversation
about what was proper protocol and what was the proper thing to do at the appropriate time. And although I have never been privileged to attend an inauguration of a tribal leader before, I want all of you to understand how appreciative we are of being able to be here on this day. And the reason that I shared with you the conversation that Linda and I had was because as we may make mistakes, I hope that everybody understands that any mistake we made is not intended, but perhaps somewhat out of ignorance. And perhaps that best exemplifies the relationship that has existed for far too long between the Indian people of this state and the non-Indian people of the state of South Dakota. I don't know how many of you are aware, and it may not be that important today, but my father was governor of the state of South Dakota 40 years ago. And it was just a couple of weeks ago that I had a conversation with my mother, who is almost 87 years old, who lives in Sioux Falls. And as we got to talking about the great challenges that face the leaders of this state, which has been the topic of the comments that people have made that preceded me to this microphone. As we got to talking about the challenges that faced my father 40 years ago, that face us here today, in this dawning of a new beginning, a new era of tribal government, the conversation began to change between my mother and me to one of the great disappointments that my father had when he left office. That was that, as she articulated it, it was the failure to really have made a difference in dealing with the issues and the relationship between the state and tribal governments. Well, it's with a spirit of cooperation. It is with a belief in a new era of government relationships that I believe that President Salway, Vice President Between Lodges, myself, and the other leaders in this state can truly make a difference in the way that we leave office. And hopefully that will be one of the legacies that we have. I've been very interested in some of the comments that have been made by particularly Mr. Chino as he talks about leadership. I think it was very appropriately pointed out by the chairman of the Apache Nation, Mescalero Apache Nation, and the Ute Nation, that you can't become a leader without the willingness to be criticized. I want to know that you don't have a corner on that particular trait, for it is certainly criticism that follows any position of leadership. But I couldn't help also but think as I sat and listened to that there has to be a reason why President Salway chose to run for the office that he did, or Mr. Between Lodges chose to run for the office that he did, or why I chose to run for the office that I do, or you people get involved as councilmen and women. And it has to be, as you search our souls today in this inaugural ceremony, it has to be a combination of reasons. Maybe we haven't liked the way things have happened in the past. Maybe we have a very sincere belief that we can make a difference. Maybe we have for too often believed that what we have observed and seen people pushed around is not something that we like to see continue. And so we feel we have something positive to offer as we take and assume our leadership position. There have been some anecdotes that have been shared about leadership. And it was just a little over 36 months ago that I attended my own inauguration, and it was not too different, President Salway, from the one that we're attending here today. It was with members of our legislature that were there. It was with people who believed in what we were doing. It was certainly our friends and neighbors that came to that inaugural, and I left that day with a very emotional attitude, a very optimistic attitude about what I felt that I could accomplish as I started out my first term. But we in South Dakota, both Indian and non-Indian, have a way of making sure that our egos don't run away with us. I have shared a story before that I would like to share just for a minute here that really brings a focus on that. I travel to other states, New Mexico or Utah or California, and it is not too different in many of the smaller states, but governors sometimes travel with security, or they have a driver or those kinds of things, which is not something that is part of the traditional leadership role of a governor of South Dakota. And I remember a particular incident when I drove into Rapid City, Mayor Carlisle, when I drove into Rapid City several months ago now, and I pulled up to the self-service gas station pump, like all of us do. We're no different. And I filled up my car with gasoline and went in to pay the lady behind the cash register and handed her my credit card. And as they do, they asked what my telephone number was and what my license number was. And I said, my license number is 1. And she looked at me and she said, 1 what? And I said, well, it's just 1. And she said, well, how did you get that license number? And I said, I don't know. I guess I'm just lucky. But we have a way of making sure that those of us who assume leadership roles do not get carried away with our own feeling of self-importance. And if you don't learn that on our inaugural day, we certainly do within a few days after that. I want to be relatively brief in my comments here today, but I want to share with you again some of my feelings about what I have today as I come down here to Allen, South Dakota, to pay tribute to one of my co-leaders in this state, among his people who have chosen to give him the mantle of leadership for the time that he will be able to serve. Certainly, it is a unique opportunity we have today for President Salway, as I understand it, is one of the youngest tribal presidents ever elected in this United States. I am here on behalf of all of the state of South Dakota to extend a hand of cooperation as we deal with the very knotty issues and troublesome issues that have been articulated by those that have been to this microphone before I did. But let me make just a couple of points. Number one, Mr. Salway's position that he is assuming here today is extremely important to you, but it is also extremely important to me. For we will begin now, today, to work as two political leaders in this state, two of the many political leaders in this state, on what we have called the Indian Affairs Commission, and I cannot underestimate the importance of that. Perhaps it was out of ignorance, but it was out of very well intention that I reestablished the Indian Commission shortly after my inauguration 3 years ago, because I have a couple of basic beliefs. Number one, I recognized as I took office that I was dealing with sovereigns and wanted to deal on a government-to-government basis with the tribal governments in this state. Secondly, I wanted to reopen lines of communication which for too long have been closed or at least have been clouded. And thirdly, I wanted that commission to work jointly to find solutions on ongoing dilemmas. We won't find all of the answers as I welcome President Salway or his representative to our tribal commission meetings. We won't find all the answers by just talking with each other. Many of the problems we face have been due to the intervention or direction of others over which I have no control, and maybe you don't have any control either. But it is important that we recognize at what level we are dealing and what we can accomplish. There are just as many opportunities to address some articulate problems and to find solutions for them. Let me give you a couple of things that, as we try to develop a positive agenda in the state of South Dakota to work with our tribal leaders, what I've tried to focus on. I realize that in commission meetings in Pierre, we're not going to solve jurisdiction disputes. I'm not going to solve all of the treaty relationships, although as John Echohawk has pointed out, that as part of the Western Governors, I've been fortunate to chair the Tribal State Relations Committee, and in July of this year I will chair the Western Governors Association. But we can't solve all of those problems, but it is a sincere belief that we can solve many of our problems with that dialogue if we address a positive agenda. Rural health care. The health issues in this nation, very frankly, are going to be among the most important issues of the decade of the 90s. An opportunity to have Native American students become doctors and nurses and help to alleviate the shortage of medical.
Dona lețelia hipi ki yo ki la iushkia chante washtea na pe chispa pe lo lea pe tu. Ema twenishli na matavishli. Wo khamani jelo wo ashake mani jelo. Ikchewi chasha hemacha chunke. Lewana nithoka najiki unshi michie na chante etaha wochichaki kilomita kuyepi. My name is Harold Dean Salway, Akil Najibi, given to me in a spiritual manner by one of our medicine men, Dawson Hasnohorse, who adopted me into his family when I was a young man. That name means chosen to help the people, and the time has come for me to fulfill my destiny. I am pursuing a legacy that you people have been living for hundreds and hundreds of years. I come humble in thought and in prayers, in mind and in soul, but I come strong in pride and dignity and in character. For I am what you are. I am of you. I am a part of you. This is my teacher. This is my grandfather. This is my grandmother. This is my direction for my life, for the future that I will be providing for my people. The Oglala Sioux tribe. Many words of expressions have been rendered here today. Many heartfelt thoughts, beliefs, and identifications of life from very professional, respectful, profound, dignified leaders who sit amongst us today. I give recognition to those leaders and give them my humble respect and thanks for being a part of our ceremonies today. I thank you, Mr. Chino, for coming down to our Oglala Nation and giving us some advice and direction, some words of wisdom that you have gained in your duration of leadership for 20 some odd years. I thank you, Luke, my brother from the Northern Ute, for coming down today and inspiring us with your words of clarity, wisdom, and spirituality. As a singer, as a member and also as a young leader of your nation. I thank you, Mr. Eckelhoff, for giving us the honor of having your intelligence to be here today and tell us what a majority of us do not know, of which the federal concept has been created to define a relationship from one nation to another. I thank you, Governor Mickelson, for giving us the honor of your presence and giving us words of encouragement, words of which to believe in, words to remember.